Hey guys, Shauna here with Homegrown Self Reliance. So today we're doing the Self Reliant Skill of the week, and this week we are pickling eggs for long-term storage. If you're new here, the Self Reliant Skill of the week is where I learn a new to me vintage skill every single week for the whole year of 2021. So if you want to be more self-reliant, I hope that you will join us, hit that subscribe button, and follow along. So to make pickled eggs, you are going to want to hard boil some eggs. Now I'm doing 2 quarts. You can fit anywhere between 9 and 12 eggs into a quart jar. So that's probably about right for us. Now we love hard boiled eggs, but they only last in the fridge for about a week. So the time that it takes to peel these farm fresh eggs almost doesn't justify making these every week. So I decided to try pickling them. They can actually stay in the fridge for about 3 to 4 months. They suggest not to can them because eggs are really dense, so it's really hard for the whole brine solution to actually get through the whole egg. So they say that it's really not a good idea to can pickled eggs because of the risk of botulism. But your kitchen, your rules. So anyways, I have hard boiled about 20 eggs, and I've used my chicken's eggs. These are about 2 weeks old, and they say that when they're older they are easier to hard boil and peel, which they are, but even after 2 weeks I kind of just end up butchering them. So hey, if you have any tips on hard boiling and peeling a perfect farm fresh egg, please leave that in the comments so that we can all learn. One other thing that I wanted to mention, if you do end up butchering your eggs and you have some yolk exposed, don't put that in with your pickled eggs, because the brine solution will actually almost liquefy the yolks, and then it'll turn your brine all cloudy and it'll just be really unappetizing. So just use the ones that are maybe a little butchered, but still no yolk exposed. Okay, so what we're gonna do first is we make a basic brine. So what we're gonna need is a cup of white vinegar, a cup of water, about 2 tablespoons of salt, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and then you can get creative and do whatever kind of spices you want to put in there. Usually you want to put the spices and other stuff into the jar with the eggs rather than boiling it with your solution. So I've got a cup of white vinegar and a cup of water. You want it to be at least a 50-50 dilution on your brine, because that'll be what will keep it safe in the fridge. So you want to shoot for about a 1-to-1 ratio. Some recipes, like for example bread and butter pickles, which I'm also going to do, they call for a straight vinegar brine. Well, with the salt and sugar added too. So I'm actually going to do 2 batches right now. And this basic brine solution that I just gave you is enough for about a quart of pickled eggs. So we're going to do 2 of those. So I'm going to do 2 cups of white vinegar in my other pot. And we're gonna have to heat this up really well so that all of the sugars and salt will dissolve. Here's my sugar. I want 2 tablespoons of it in the basic brine. And 2 tablespoons of salt. I'm actually going to use Himalayan sea salt. I've heard that you don't really want the iodized salt in here because it can give the eggs kind of a funky taste. So doing non-iodized salt. And then for the bread and butter brine, we're going to do also 2 tablespoons of salt, and about a half a cup of sugar. We're using more sugar in this one because it's just a straight vinegar brine, so we really don't want it just all that vinegary tasting. So we're going to temper that sourness with some sweet. I love bread and butter pickles. I love the combination of the sweet and sour. So I'm hoping I'm really going to like the bread and butter pickled eggs. Alright, so now that it's boiling, I'm going to turn it down. Alright, it's just simmering a little bit. While that's doing that, we're going to put our eggs in the jar. So some of my eggs here are my Banty eggs, so they're a little bit smaller. So I might actually be able to fit closer to a dozen in here. I think I've got about 20 boiled eggs here. Actually, no, since I messed up on a couple of those, I don't think I have quite 20. So and those are good. The brine is done. It really just needs to be able to heat up to where it'll dissolve the salt and sugar. So then what we want to do is get our other spices. Start with the dill pickled eggs. First, I'm actually going to take one of these out, put it in this other one because there's not enough for this one. And you want to make sure that the eggs are completely submerged by the brine, so I'm just going to even them out a little bit more here. So then we want, for the dill pickled eggs, we're going to do probably 3 or 4 cloves of garlic. So I hope you can see this a little better. We need to actually smash the garlic cloves a little bit. And we're going to put those directly in the jar. I found that it's easiest to peel these by just smashing the garlic with the flat end of a knife. The skin just pops off. And we're just putting them in random spots in here. We're also going to put an onion. I actually have some pickled onions that I did. So I'm going to put those in there. I think they're going to be quite pretty. You actually might want to layer these a little better, just for the pretty look of it. Alright. Then of course it wouldn't be dill pickled eggs without dill weed or dill seed. You want about a teaspoon of it. Do a little more because that was not quite a teaspoon. Coriander. It's going to take about a teaspoon of it as well. And mustard seeds, or if you don't have mustard seeds, like I don't, you can just use ground mustard. And a little over a teaspoon of it. Well, if you're using mustard seeds, it's about a teaspoon. If you're doing ground mustard, about a teaspoon and a half. We also need celery seed. And we want about a teaspoon of it also. Now if you had some fresh dill sprigs, that would be nice to pour in here too, or to put in there. But I don't have any, so we're just going with that. It turned kind of pink because of the Himalayan salt in it. And wow, that is just about perfect on covering that all up. You want to put your lid on it, give it a decent shake. And there we go. So on both of these types of pickled eggs, you want to let them sit in the fridge for 7 to 10 days before you eat them. So hold off a little bit I know you're anxious to try them, but just give it a little bit of time. Okay, so then let's go back to the bread and butter pickled eggs. I've only got a few in here. I'm sad. Okay, so for bread and butter pickled eggs, you also want about a half of a small onion. Just gonna throw in some of my pickled onions here. 3 or 4 garlic cloves. Once again, smashing them. And popping that skin right off. And then again, we need the mustard or mustard seed. Want about a teaspoon of mustard seed or about a teaspoon and a half of ground mustard. I'm gonna do a little bit less because I don't have a full batch here. And we need celery seed again. About a teaspoon, a little less maybe. And then we want to put in a little bit of turmeric. So I'm virtually out of turmeric. I'm going to use the last little bit of it here. And that's going to give it a lovely flavor and beautiful color. And then we're going to pour in our brine, which again is just 2 cups of vinegar, 2 tablespoons of salt, 2 tablespoons of sugar. Actually, don't really need all of it, but I'm just gonna put it in anyways. I'll put the lid on it also and shake it up. Again, you want to let them sit for 7 to 10 days. Then you can enjoy them. They'll last in the fridge for about 3 to 4 months if you can keep them around that long. Hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you subscribe if you want to become more self-reliant also. And I will see you guys next week.